you've got a National Party, which I think that was a mistake. It should be called the Country Party because the country, the bush, has no one to legitimately represent them. But they're completely woke. I mean, the bloke who replaced Barnaby Joyce, David Littleproud, has embraced 100% renewables. I mean, this pipe dream stuff, you'll never get there without punishing the very sector he purports to represent.
That's right, Alan. And look, the issue with 100% renewables is firstly, it's completely infeasible. But secondly, all of the costs that are going to be imposed. And you mentioned the net zero goal, and which is now in legislation. And there's two key issues with that. Firstly, it will unleash a torrent of green group lawfare because every single major project that's approved by the government will now be assessed against the objective of net zero. So any major project that emits carbon could be on the chopping block by green groups taking these projects to court. But secondly, as you know, every single major step in the production process in the agricultural sector involves energy, whether it's diesel in your tractor, whether it's electricity you need in your shearing shed or your plant or your packaging factory, whether it's getting your product to market and exporting it overseas, whether it's selling things in supermarkets or the local market. Every single step involves electricity and energy. And if it involves that, it means it's on the chopping block because of net zero. And as you say, the 43% emissions cut by 2030. I mean, the government's got to get there somehow, and it's going to get there through cutting agriculture, transport and resources.
Well, just taking transport, for example, and I don't want to spend time on this because I want to raise something else with you, but just take, I'm broadcasting to you from a room here in Sydney. Everything in this room has been brought here via transport, everything. Everything that we eat in the mornings, to go for the coffee shop or go down to have a sandwich at lunch and whatever, it has been the function of transport to actually make it operate as it is. Now, when were they going to tell us to what extent is the punitive attack of government going to make transport virtually unviable? See, I spoke last week to Michael Schellenberger, a world-renowned authority on this, who was once a mad environmentalist. And I should say that is online to our viewers. The interview has gone absolutely berserk. And he wrote about, quote, the climate scare we've created over the past 30 years. Now, this is the farmer that Daniel's talking about is going to cover all this. He said, climate change is not even our most serious environmental problem. And he said, once you realise how badly misinformed we've been, it's hard not to feel duped. So Daniel, Chris Bowen is taking us on a ride to ruin.
Well, he certainly is, Alan. If I could pick up on the transport point, you've got all these, affluent, woke, inner city elitists who want to have electric vehicles. And look, that's fine if you're going for a few kilometres on the weekend or taking your kids to school or the footy or soccer match. But what they don't understand is that, firstly, Australia is a suburban society. We're not a European city with high density living. We are a suburban society where we live in our suburbs and regions. So the European model just doesn't apply to Australia. But secondly, things like utes and tractors, these are tools of the trade for those on the land. These are not playthings of inner city bureaucrats. So you cannot have an electric powered ute. I mean, what happens when the electricity goes down? How are you going to get around? What if there's a bushfire risk? What if you're in trouble? These are completely impractical solutions for the reality of life on the land in Australia. Yet all of these ideas are being pushed by inner city leftist bureaucrats who have very little experience outside of the inner city bubble, but they're imposing these costs, as you say, on farmers and on hard-working mainstream Australian families.